Today we're going to look at what a low block is and how we deal with that and how we look to break it down and there's sort of measures we have to put in place to protect ourselves against a counter as well from a low block. So just to explain what a low block is, the blue team here are in what I would describe as a low block. So defensively, they've dropped into their own final third. They're protecting the centre and they're blocking the gap centrally, so they're making it really tough to play through a central area. Now, what that does allow is that invites circulation in front of them. So you're probably going to see a lot of the ball being switched from one side to the other. So what it requires from us to try and break down this block is a lot of patience and precision. And key word there is on patience. So you'd probably normally see a team that's playing a low block have around 30 to 40% possession, and the team that are trying to break that block down, being a bit more aggressive, to have 60 to 70% possession normally. So there's a lot of patience that's required, and there's a few key things that we need to discuss in terms of how we break this block down. But the key element to think about is that the low block is protecting the centre. That's where the goal is. They're protecting the central area. They really condense their vertical gaps, so the space in between the defence and the midfield and the strikers. You can see here there's very, very little room to play through there, or the space in between the lines to get in between. So they're being really compact vertically, so from one end of the pitch to the other, and they're being very compact horizontally as well. So they're offering up space wide, they're being very compact through the centre, and that allows us to circulate the ball out because they're inviting that. So for us as the attacking team here in the red, width is a non-negotiable. So we have to pin their fullbacks in. So we want our right winger here and our left winger here to be very wide and to occupy both wide lanes. So we really want to try and stretch that central block and move that central block if we can do. When we switch the play, if we come into there, they bounce it back. That movement alone will shift this block across because they'll have to come across and be compact on the ball side, and we'll see this block move across there. And then when we look to switch out, what we're hoping that does is that as they move across, that starts to create some gaps. So maybe the winger and the fullback here have got out a little bit too quick. This plays a gap here, and this is an extreme example, but just to make the point, maybe there's a gap opened up here now that the striker that can then come and receive, and we can play a ball straight into there. So that circulation from left to right, that switch of play, might open up gaps in the opposition, and that's what we have to try and do. Another non-negotiable is that we have to think about depth as well. So the width is really important. And let me just put this block back into shape here, because we want to try and open up gaps horizontally through circulation of the switch of play, through width, as we've just said. But also depth is really important. So we need a striker that's threatening in behind. We need players in between the lines here. And I'd probably look, if we're in a 4-2-3-1 here, so we've got the back four, two pivot midfielders, 10, striker, two wingers. Our 10 is going to be in between the lines. I'm probably going to go and ask my 8 to be in between the lines there as well. And that just allows one pivot midfielder to link the play. So we need a striker threatening in behind. We need players in between the lines for when we open those gaps up. And we need players in support in front of the block as well, which we've got with our centre backs, and we've got with our pivot midfielder as well. So horizontally, non-negotiable, we're locked in the wide positions. We've got width, and that might come from both fullbacks who could overlap and get round, or inverted runs as well on the other side. And then we've got depth, threat in behind, we've got players in between the lines, we've got support from a pivot and two centre backs. And when we've just spoken about the non-negotiable of switching the play and trying to break up gaps from a width perspective, we've also got to try and pull that block up the field. And that's why you'll see defenders like John Stones here, when Man City have really come up against this, put the foot on the ball, maybe try to invite a bit of pressure there. That opens up a gap in behind all of a sudden. Maybe we can come to there and straight into there. Or maybe this player's been attracted here, and that offers up space here. And the fullback can come inside and we can go to there. So we might even go a little bit further in our half and pull them forwards a little bit more. What you would want to see if you was the manager of the team in the low block is that they all go together or they all sit patiently. A low block will be torn to pieces if they go in ones and gaps start to appear between the lines and gaps start to appear. But as the attacking team in red here, that's what we want to see. We either want to stretch them across the pitch to open up gaps for us to play into, or we want to stretch them vertically to pull them up the pitch to open up gaps in between the lines. And that's where these players become really important, because as soon as that gap opens up, we want to be playing that ball into there. And that's where we said at the start with patience and precision. Patience is really important to open the gaps up. We've got to be really precise with our passes and our technique to get the ball into the right spaces to play. Because as soon as they receive there, they're going to be under a great deal of pressure straight away. Because the block is so compact, there's going to be 1, 2, 3 players around the ball straight away. Things that we can use to try and break this block up. We've talked about switching the play. We've talked about trying to draw the team out. Third man runs are really important. And what I mean by a third man run is that if this, well, our centre backs have got the ball here. So let's say this is the fullback here, isn't it? So let's say the winger's got the ball here because we've just switched the play out. They've been drawn here. They've been drawn here. The striker's going to come and support. Maybe we've opened up a gap, but the fullback makes an inverted run here. So that ball goes into the striker. That's player 1, that's player 2. Player 3 is making the run, and then they receive through the lines. You could make loads of examples of a third man run. That's just a very simple one, but that off the ball movement is going to be really disruptive and is not immediately obvious because it's not on the ball and can catch players on their blind sides. So it's not the player that's passing the ball, it's not the player that's receiving, it's the player that's making a movement as a third man run. Okay, bounce passes are really important. So when we have got the centre backs here, you might see the pivot come to receive, they pop it in, maybe that hasn't drawn pressure, but they pop it back, maybe that starts to draw pressure up, we pop it in there, maybe we're attracted here, and then they bop it back, and then all of a sudden this centre back can drive forward with the ball. So really, really important factors there. What we've talked about today is width, depth, movement, patience, structure, and also we need to talk about counter protection as well. So the idea of a low block is hit you on the counter. The rest defense is really important. So that's a low block. How to break it down. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments.